Hello guys, we're going to be reacting again to something new. Reacting to Undertale with a Side Assault by ScottFalco. And yeah, we got Senor Pelo here, the Sanis. I really like his Undertale animations because they're super hilarious. Don't touch the child. Got all that. Yeah, we're gonna be reacting to this because I got a slight reaction to make from it. So let's just start it. This time I'll actually go full screen. Oh, by the way, I got to I watched his animations for Deltarune and his I think it was a side assault for Deltarune, and I like those. I don't think it was a side assault. I think it was just something else. But
Undertale.
This is a great beginning though.
Oh my god, I love Undertale. Undertale is so good. I love
Let's scroll for details. Oh, so it's no longer really full screen, huh?
So Undertale is out on the Switch now, which means it's only going to get another resurgence. Legit props to the Undertale community for sticking around and active this long, even though you've gotten jack shit in terms of official new content. I say official since there are a surprising amount of fan games, but this is about Undertale, the actual one, the to-be-determined one. Heck, even when announcing this, everyone was like, a couple years too late. But that's probably because their mindset was so crowded with Fortnite porn, they couldn't put the square into the hole when it's re-releasing. Despite the easy marks, I'm going to do my absolute darndest to not spend this entire video shining a light on the fandom, because pretty much everyone already knows about them, and even though it's
You had to actually search up these images, by the way.
What the hell is that? Put that shit away! So Undertale is an RPG made by Tobey Maguire, which is pretty freaking cool. Matt,
There's so many Tobys in the world.
props to solo devs who can actually put out a game after receiving fan help, instead of just coasting off Patreon fun bucks and lies. Yes. You know who I'm talking about. Stop it. We're gonna put up all sorts of fucking warnings because this is delicate ground. To start off, there will be no story spoilers. Some gameplay aspects will be spoiled, but nothing that'll make it so if you're playing the game for the first time after watching this, you'll sit there being like, that guy, that's the guy he talked about.
To me, I don't get why you have to put spoilers anymore for a game that's over 3 years old. You know, people are gonna watch a review because I guess they want to play it, or I guess they want to see other opinions like me. But I guess a lot of people watch reviews that are not that haven't played and just want to play it. But just play it beforehand. I mean, I guess if you don't want to waste your money. I'm on the fence about that still. But for a game that's come out already 3 years and the internet exploded with it, and you couldn't have missed everything about it.
And he's gonna do a thing! But I mean, probably everyone already knows everything about Undertale because of... I am gonna talk about some flaws the game has, but also point out the good parts and why I think it's a good game. Oh, they only heard that first part, huh? Alright, just gonna put this up and maybe one of these.
This is satire to mock people who don't listen to the full thing, which is basically taking a phrase out of context. Never take it out of context or else you'll look pretty dumb.
Right there. Alright, I think I'm ready. In Undertale, you can flirt instead of hurt, have a good tone to avoid the bone, stop and go the entire game without having to kill anyone. But if you so much as trip over a fly by accident, everyone will be like, hey, what's up, cool guy? Remember that time you murdered someone?
Yeah, the stuff in my store is pretty neat for people who aren't murderers.
This only applies to a few characters. They call you out for doing a bad thing, you know?
Fuck! I only have a few actual issues with the game. One being the graphics. I understand the simplistic nature as a solo dev.
Okay, so he's going to compare graphics to another graphic designer. To another person who made a full game by themselves. I just think Deltarune looks so much better. He's definitely learned a lot more about making colorful backgrounds and stuff. And he also said, I'm talking about Toby Fox, by the way, that doing stuff in color was always a hard thing for him, because he always liked the black and white, the neutral. Just like, in art, there's positive and negative space. I think Toby Fox is more into that.
Plus 10. The character portraits are charming, but the overworld sprites just don't measure up to something like Cave Story, which is also made by one guy, but its simplistic style is a lot more appealing to look at, and stays...
So, the overworld is it's flat, right? There's actually no perspective. I guess. If it was based on like a first person, third person perspective, this would be like a second person kind of. But that's obviously a bad analogy, but I don't know what I'm trying to say is that there are no real curves, backgrounds, but you're always looking at things in the front. There's no perspective where you're able to look at things sideways, which is how Toby Fox designs his puzzles and stuff. But if he's talking about the art direction, I think the colors could have been a lot more. The colors and some of the designs in the overworld could be a lot more better.
It's a constant instead of tantalizing you with drastically different art for menus or fights. But my biggest gripe with Undertale is in fact the...
So, yeah. What did you just say? I forgot.
Tantalizing you with drastically different art for menus or fights. But my biggest gripe...
Menus or fights. Ooh, babies! Someone came home and they're really loud. So, the menus and fights, it's trying to make it stylistic and then simple, right? So that's a change in tone, which ScottFalco's just said like that. He doesn't really like these change in tones.
Right with Undertale is in fact the narrative. The Tale from Down Under boasts about how it's an RPG where you don't have to kill anyone, but the subtitle should be the RPG where you shouldn't kill anyone. Seriously, you monster, how could you even think? I swear to God, I'm gonna come to your house and heck you the frick up. The genocide route is kind of a mess. I understand pushing a message of kill is bad, don't please. But the extent this game goes to is borderline preachy. Like, I'm not gonna feel bad for being bad in a video game. Grinding is necessary, but
To me, it's like, it's not really that preachy to me. It's just like he tried to make these outcomes more realistic. You know how like people are sad and people are killed, and then they always ask why. Why did you do this? Why did you do this? You know the consequences, right? You know them, right? Why? And that's basically what Toby Fox is trying to answer with the genocide, to my understanding.
The encounter rates drop so low after a short while to the point where it becomes a really big chore. You can even lock your...
There's so many people in the world, right? So getting them in random encounters, if you ever see a speedrun, it's always such a chore, right? You're able to walk in the same place, right? Almost. And it resets the random encounter meter, and you have to fight like all the enemies in one area to keep going.
Yourself out of the game if you don't play the route correctly. I can sort of see it though, going through all this unnecessary trouble for a big payoff. Plenty of games do that with either just flat out...
So he's still talking about, he's going to talk about payoffs.
Or optional fights, oftentimes rewarding you at the end, which isn't the case with Undertale.
It actually is the case with Undertale. You have to kill everyone, right? You're a murderer. You're a mass murderer. You can't get any pleasure except killing everybody, right? So you go out of your way to kill everybody, and then you fight Undyne in her determination form, and then you fight Sans. And those are the two hardest boss fights in the entire game for Genocide. So, yeah.
After you sludge through the...
It also said optional boss fights. Well, I don't think there are any optional boss fights in Undertale. Actually, I think there might be one in the core. I don't remember, but you can pretty much skip all. I mean, you have to do all the boss fights. But in Deltarune, they kind of fixed that with an optional hard boss named Jevil later in the game, later in Chapter 1.
the route, the game continues to cram your face in a Bible while screaming, "Repent, sinner!" And you get literally zero rewards, only punishments. Again, from a narrative standpoint, yes, it gives the message that by moral grounds you are in the wrong. You are the villain. Good God, you're horrible. P.S. If you didn't know, you suck. And that can kind of be cool. The way...
So he doesn't really like that they're pinning so much on your consequences, right? Like, I really don't know what to say about that. Just like, yeah, people are gonna give you shit for all the bad things you do.
The way the game messes with your computer is definitely an interesting concept. I thought it was a lot more interesting just having yourself shown as the villain. I didn't think it was interesting when the game...
So you're not shown as a villain. That's the thing, though. Unless he's still talking about genocide. Then, but you don't start off as a murderer. You don't start off as a villain. You start off as yourself, and you make decisions based on yourself. You're not a villain or a hero at the start. You're nothing but a person with choices to make. And those choices become what your character and the storyline evolves into.
Tries to fake you out, pretending your game will never work again because you didn't sip from its fountain of knowledge or social justice. I bought a game, damn it. I don't want to be punished for playing it. It's like if you bought a movie and watched the deleted scenes, and then the movie just deletes all the other scenes because you watched something that wasn't supposed to be there. But after waiting 10 minutes, it calls you names and then starts up again. Plus, what some...
Okay, so that's not a good analogy because that's not actually what happens. If you do something, it has a consequence. If you do something else, it has a different consequence, or it could have the same consequence, right? There are multiple ways to do things to get the same consequences, and there's also multiple ways to do things to get different consequences. So the fact that like, if the universe had, like, could have different timelines, and you did different things in different timelines, different stuff will occur. You would meet different friends, you would have different relationships, and I think that's what Undertale is trying to say, like, trying to tell you that if you do something at this time, this thing will happen. But apparently, ScottFalco doesn't think like that's
Some considers
how it should
cool,
go.
others...
Because the only timeline in a movie is that timeline that they're showing as a movie, right? And then there's a deleted scene. It's part of the timeline. Like, it could exist in the timeline, but it's not shown because it's not important. It was cut out. And it wouldn't it would have dragged on the movie-going experience.
Such as myself might consider cringe. Certain moments come off as really mediocre creepypasta, and too much fourth wall breaking can be exhausting in any medium. The game was obviously inspired by...
So the fourth wall breaking, I was okay with the whole time. Because I was like, oh, that's funny, right? That's great. I wasn't like, oh God, stop breaking the wall, stop breaking the meta the whole time.
by Earthbound, which did a good fourth wall break and left it at that. Near the end of the game, for any ending, it just becomes save and load, space time. Anyways, let's talk about the rest of the game. Starting off with the gameplay / lack thereof. I personally hate turn-based RPGs, but I was still entertained throughout my play of Toby Flenderson's Broadway production of Monsters, Inc. Fighting is literally just picking the fight option over and over and then doing a small timed minigame. No special abilities or anything, just constant attacks, which is dull as poop-a-doop.
Well, that's the point, right? There's, like, no other way to fight. You're a little kid with a knife or something. If there were different ways to fight, as different ways to act, I think that'd be fun. But it gets boring in the genocide route. And he's saying Undertale, as a review. I feel like he's just putting everything on the genocide route.
The enemy's attacks can be best summarized by bullet hell light minigames, which you often just dodge projectiles in various ways, with a few differences here and there, eventually transitioning into WarioWare Battle Edition. Battles have going the past.
I really like the bullet hells though, except Deltarune does it a lot better. Yeah, obviously Deltarune is easier, but the bullet hells in Undertale kind of feel like it doesn't do much until like the Sans fight and stuff, and the Sans fight is the only thing you can do in Genocide. So yeah.
Pacifist route boiled down to encounter, reaction, dodging, and then repeating parts 2 and 3 until the end. But the fun part comes from the dialogue. To avoid killing, you normally have to do quirky things to your foes, such as flirt, dance, fart, or some other random thing. Whereas this oftentimes will result in exhales out of the nose, it quickly loses its shine and almost certainly kills the replayability of the game. Your first encounter with a nugget might...
It definitely kills replayability because of random encounters and also the same bullet patterns all the time. Because if there's multiple enemies with the same bullet patterns, you're playing the same thing multiple times. And to just to try to get to the same point in every battle, to spare them or to kill them, it's just very time consuming and very
result in
monotonous.
Laughter when it barfs to attack, and you have to wonder if a pat on the back is the right choice or...
But here's the thing about acting. There's different things for every enemy. And based on their personality and based on your first impressions, you can have many different ways to act in the fight, which makes things interesting because it's always like, what can I do? What do they actually like? And then when you do something bad, you get pushback, and then you're like, yeah, I'll do the other thing because it's probably better. Like you're learning how to interact with things.
Offering it some antacids will subdue the foe. Once you find it out, though, the magic is instantly lost, and any of the repeat of that monster becomes, okay, let me just do this to essentially one-shot him. And the reactions of the monsters become less and less charming. A repeat playthrough will become a chore since there will...
If there were more like different characters among the same enemies, that'd be fun. That'd be fine. It's like humans, right? Everyone has a different personality, but we're all still human.
Or vary the combat the first time, you will essentially just be going through a list, which is also the case for a lot of characters. Many of them are praised, but are actually pretty one-dimensional, and the redeeming parts of most of them are essentially stemmed from a shock factor. You don't expect them to behave or do the actions that they do, but once you've seen it, there's not really anything else to go on.
I would say that they're not one-dimensional, mainly because you can interact with most of them outside of the battle, right? And compared to like other RPGs where monsters are one-dimensional, they're not just personalities. They're not like people in the Undertale universe. They are just fodder enemies. They're nothing but experience points, and that's what I think Toby Fox is trying to say, is that people have lives. Understand that not everything can go your way just because you understand the world as you know it at that point. You don't have a full understanding of the world, and you'll never have a full understanding of the world. But the most you can do is try to interact with things and try to get things your way or their way or both of your ways most of the time. It's not a world where you have to fight all the time. And sometimes, and they do address this in Deltarune, that it's some people just cannot be reasoned with.
They make their joke and then they're done, which again, isn't necessarily bad. The story is pretty interesting, but again, the tale of Monsties in a Cave by Toby Starfox shoves its morals so far up your ass, it's hard to see it sometimes. Other characters in the game can grow as time goes on. They can make mistakes, some of them have even killed. They can learn from their situations, and they can change, but you can't.
That's because you're the new person, right? Everyone will judge you as soon as you come. And there's literally no reason to kill.
Undertale makes sure you are locked into a route, which is kind of weird considering it's supposed to be all like aware of you playing, but whatever. If you did it dirty and gave an ouchie to a Monstie... Oh!
The point is, like, they really just run a hammer in the fact that hurting people, killing them, is bad, right? Like, there's no other way around it. he does say in the beginning of the video that he knows that they're trying to push the narrative or something that killing is bad. Sorry, that was a little bit too passive aggressive. But yeah, killing is bad. You're not part of their world. You're just some stranger. It's just like you're Superman, right? You come into this world, and your choices have the most power to kill people, and people will judge you based on that.
Oh, you learned from killing something and felt remorse? You're ready to grow and avoid combat? That's great! But you still killed something, so... the game doesn't...
It makes sense, right? You may feel remorse, but nothing you can do can bring back that other person that's dead.
Reward you for actually following its narrative. Everything just becomes more and more difficult as you progress, with no option to give yourself the upper hand outside of buying new armor. You can't grind otherwise. I'm all for a good story and
that's the point. Like, it was satire on every other RPG out there.
Narrative, but I hate having things crammed down my throat. You can make me feel things without telling me I should be feeling them. Despite the gripes, I do think...
You don't have to agree, right? It's just... it's other people's reactions. You don't have to agree.
I think the writing is actually...
But listening is the first step to understanding.
I had many chuckles and whatnot from characters like Pappy or Meta Tons of Fun. Outside of some staleness in battles periodically, the lack of replayability, and the whole genocide route, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. But this is a video that started with talking about negative things, so to a lot of peeps, I'm sure the reactions are along the lines of, "He hates it. Nothing he said can change that. His opinions are different, so I'm gonna tell him why his opinions are wrong." But we'll give it a go at changing that view by diving into specifics of what I liked, starting with the story. I mentioned it a little in the genocide...
Okay, so... Good? Yo, wait a second. Holy crap.
Route, but the story does have a few moments that really let you feel the weight.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, the good points don't overlay the bad points, right? Like, you can make a list of pro and cons, but in the end, they're all gonna, they don't cancel each other out. You can't change the fact that they have these cons or they have these pros. They don't cancel out. Crap.
Weight of your decisions. Very rarely in games when there is an evil route do I actually feel like the villain rather than just chaotic neutral or something. But one of the genocide boss fights really solidifies it that what you're doing is making Undertale's world view you as the final boss. On the opposite spectrum, the pacifist route, whereas it does get pretty, haha, I realize I'm game, what now, Mr. Player? It does have unique dialogue, some interesting mindfucks, and triumphant feelings, which it uses to disguise your inability to actually lose during that battle. It's also neat how many little nuggets the game has when trying to mess around with its files. When going...
I really enjoy the fact that it does that. If you can hear in the background, I'm sorry. I think Toby's story writing is very great. And because it has a humor, it has a story, it makes you feel compelled for these characters. And I like that.
Through normally, there weren't really any downtimes per se. It just kind of kept you going, which is great if you're decent at games, because the difficulty spikes won't really hinder you. And since you're unable to grind, you just keep on trucking. But I mean, the easiest way to tell if someone has shit taste or is just hating on Undertale because it's popular is if they insult the music.
That's true.
I won't lie. When the fandom
That
reaches
is very
pretty
true.
peak cringitude, I got a dumb mindset of popular thing is bad. Damn it. But even at that point, I just couldn't bring myself to bash the music. There are so many great tracks in the game, and a lot of them help really capture a mood or impact a scene. That's what I was mentioning earlier about letting me feel things without just telling me. On the good end of the fandom, I have seen so many creative pieces come to light because of this game. Fan of it or not, a slew of talented fan art, animation, games, and music were created because of this. So much creativity and happiness was brought into the world because of Undertale.
I freaking love Senor Palo. Oh my goodness. You should watch those. They're so great. And he has a great point, is that the fandom is not just the fandom. There's multiple points. There's a spectrum of fandom where people are just cancerous or cringy, and then other people are just like, really love love the game so much that they're able to pour their talent, to pour their work into this.
Despite how much you like or hate it, you gotta admit that's pretty cool. Sure, there's a lot of cringy stuff with the community too, but there's plenty of posts, videos, and what have you about that stuff. I figured I would simply give my experiences as someone who enjoyed the game, but views it as it is, a game that's worth a play, well worth the price, and has instilled plenty of peeps with confidence and determination. Besides, if you like the game but hate its community, it's not like you have to be active there. I like parts of Rick and Morty, but Lord knows I'd never willingly...
This is also very true. Just because you like something doesn't mean you have to get involved into everything. It's not like if you're not involved, how are you a true fan or something? There's a fallacy of gatekeeping.
Converse with someone wearing a Pickle Rick shirt, just like I like Undertale, but that doesn't mean I have to talk to fans or be lumped in with stuff. No. Get out of here. You were hidden for a reason, you piece of...
I get that he tried to make a lightweight joke at the end. So, yeah, that's my reaction to his video. Now I'm going to look at the comments and react to those as well. Once you see the bad side. I have seen the bad side, but I just choose to be ignorant of it. On his opinions, I'm glad people are bringing their opinions that are not just like completely what's it called? Just totally bashing or totally fanboying over it. I didn't know you could spare her because it took you so long to spare her, and you probably, that just shows like my impatience with interaction sometimes. So yeah, that really is just my reaction. Obviously, I disagreed with most of the things. And if you see up here, I'm kind of contemplating buying the soundtracks, but for W Fox, just because I really like the music, and like he said, the music is fantastic. You can't really complain about the music. The music is there. The music helps the game. The music accentuates the game. And yeah, so that's it. See you guys in the next one. And bye-bye. Whoosh.